When I moved into that tiny apartment with Oliver, I thought I was just signing a lease, not opening a door into the most emotionally confusing chapter of my life. He was everything I wasn't, charming, laid back with this careless grin that made you wonder what secrets he was hiding. And I was guarded, practical, the kind of guy who flinched at too much touch, too much attention. But one night, one unexpected massage changed everything. What began as a friendly gesture slowly unraveled the tension between us both, physical and emotional, and what happened after I never saw it coming. This is the story of how my straight roommate touched more than just my back. He touched something I didn't know was waiting to be awakened. I met Oliver through a listing online, a clean ad, decent photos, and a rent split that didn't make my wallet cry after a short call and an even shorter tour. We signed the lease, shook hands, and just like that, I had a roommate, a tall, sandy-haired guy with ocean blue eyes and an annoying habit of walking around barefoot. The apartment was modest, exposed, brick, creaky floors, 2 small bedrooms and 1 bathroom we'd have to share. But it was cozy, and it had character. Oliver, on the other hand, was unexpected. I'm not good with people. I like my routines, my lists, my coffee, with oat milk, at exactly 5 a.m. Oliver. He danced while frying eggs, sang off key in the shower, and called me dude, like we'd known each other since high school. At first we kept to ourselves, me with my graphic design freelance gigs, and him bouncing between photography classes and working nights at a bar. We were polite, friendly, distant but slowly, like steam fogging up a mirror. The distance faded. It started with late-night chats over instant ramen. He'd ask about my day. I'd mumble something about client deadlines. He'd laugh, tell me I needed to loosen up, and I'd scoff. But secretly I liked it. Oliver had a way of making space feel warmer. He could sit next to you on the couch, close, but not intrusive. I used to flinch at accidental touches, but with him, I didn't. Then came the night I pulled something in my neck. I'd been hunched over my laptop for 6 straight hours, tweaking the same banner ad for a client who couldn't decide between 2 shades of green. I groaned as I stood up, reaching behind my neck with stiff fingers. "You good?" Oliver asked from the kitchen, pouring himself a glass of water. "Pulled something," I muttered, rubbing my shoulder. He walked over, sipping lazily. "Want me to try something?" My ex used to get tension headaches. "I'm kind of decent at massages." I hesitated. My body tensed up more out of habit than anything else. "I'm fine, really." He raised an eyebrow, smirking. "Suit yourself, but you're walking like a robot." I laughed despite myself. The next night the pain was worse. I couldn't even turn my head properly. "Okay," I finally said, slumping onto the couch. "I'll take you up on that massage." His grin widened. "Told you. Trust the barefoot guy always." I sat cross-legged, nervously facing the back of the couch. "Nope," he said. "Lie down, face down." Shirt off my heart. Did a weird, unsteady flip. "What, dude? You can't expect me to work magic through fabric." I gave him a look but obeyed, lying face down and pulling off my shirt. The cool leather of the couch made my skin tingle. I felt exposed, awkward, but then he placed his hands on my shoulders, firm, warm, steady. His thumbs pressed into the tight knots near my neck, and I let out an involuntary sigh. "Damn," he said softly. "You're wound up like a spring." His voice was lower now, calmer. I could feel his breath near my ear. As he leaned closer, his hands worked in slow circles, finding tension like they had a map. I could barely focus on anything but the way his fingers seemed to read my body. There was nothing sexual about it, at least not on the surface, but my mind was chaos. I focused on the flickering candle on the coffee table, the muted sound of music from the apartment upstairs, anything to avoid acknowledging how warm my skin felt under his hands. "You okay?" he murmured. "Yeah," I said. Voice just didn't expect it to feel this good. He chuckled, soft and almost intimate. "Told you I got skills." There was a long pause, his hands stilled. "I used to do this for my brother too," he said quietly. "He had anxiety. This helped." I turned my head, slightly surprised. Oliver didn't talk about his family much. Is he okay now? He shrugged, moved away. We're not that close anymore. I didn't know what to say to that, so instead I let silence stretch between us like a thread. We were both afraid to pull too hard when he finally stepped back. I sat up slowly, half shivering from the loss of contact. That was incredible. I admitted, rubbing the back of my neck. Thanks. No problem, he said, a strange look on his face. Not pride, not smugness, something quieter, softer. I put my shirt back on, suddenly needing distance, but from that night on, something changed. We didn't talk about the massage again, but our touches lingered longer. A hand on my shoulder that stayed just a beat too long, sitting closer on the couch, each brushing fingers while passing the remote, and I caught myself watching him, when he wasn't looking, the way he bit his lip when he was focused, the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed. My chest ached with something I didn't want to name until one night something happened that forced everything to the surface. It was raining hard, the kind of rain that turns sidewalks into mirrors. I was up late working when Oliver stumbled in, soaked to the bone, grinning like a fool. You're drenched, I said, standing up, lost my umbrella. He shrugged, peeling off his jacket. His shirt clung to him, outlining muscles. I tried not to notice. He toed off his shoes and stood in the hallway, dripping. Go dry off before you ruin the floor, I said, reaching for a towel. He didn't move. Oliver, he looked at me with those eyes, clear and unreadable. You ever feel like something's about to change but you don't know how to stop it? I blinked. What do you mean? He stepped closer slowly, like something's been building, and if you don't say something, you'll regret it. I swallowed hard. My pulse hammered in my ears. Say what? I whispered. He hesitated, then his hand brushed my wrist. Nothing, he said, smiling faintly. Good night, man. And just like that, he walked away, but I stood frozen. Heart thunder, knowing everything had just shifted. The morning after the storm, everything felt too quiet. I sat at the kitchen table, staring into a bowl of soggy cereal, trying to act like I hadn't lain awake half the night, replaying Oliver's words like something's been building. And then the way he looked at me, so intense, like he wanted to say more but pulled back at the last second. And now here we were. Two guys, one apartment, and a whole lot of tension hanging between us. Like a curtain. No one wanted to pull back. He strolled in, still shirtless, rubbing his damp hair with a towel. Morning, he said casually, like nothing had happened. Hey. I watched him pour coffee like he hadn't short-circuited my entire nervous system less than 12 hours ago. You were up late, he said, sliding into the seat across from me. Client drama. Yeah, something like that. I stirred my cereal slowly. Did you sleep okay? He looked up. You mean after my dramatic entrance last night? I cracked a smile. Kind of hard to forget. There was a pause, just long enough to feel like a decision. Sorry if I made things weird, he added. Quieter this time. I met his gaze, heart pounding. Did you? He didn't answer, but he didn't look away either. We didn't talk about it again. For the next few days, we fell back into our rhythm movie. Nights, passing banter, casual jokes. But it all felt slightly off, like we were actors in a play. We both knew the ending too, but neither wanted to jump to the final scene. One evening, I came home to find Oliver reorganizing the living room. Thought we could use a change, he said, dragging the couch at a weird angle. Also, I might have accidentally spilled salsa on the rug, so, distraction. I laughed and joined him. We ended up rearranging furniture, tossing out junk, and blasting music loud enough to annoy the neighbors. When we finally collapsed onto the newly angled couch, breathing hard and laughing. Something shifted again. He turned to me, that familiar spark in his eyes. Hey, remember that massage? I froze slightly. Yeah. Want to return the favor? My brows lifted. Me. I wouldn't know what I'm doing. He leaned closer, voice playful. Come on. It's only fair. I hesitated. He pulled a shirt over his head, revealing tan skin, lean muscle, and a relaxed confidence that made me nervous in the best and worst ways. Okay, I said quietly. But if I suck? Don't complain." He grinned and lay on his stomach across the couch, resting his chin on his folded arms. Tentatively, I placed my hands on his shoulders. His skin was warm, his muscles taut but relaxed beneath my touch. I knew awkwardly at first, unsure of pressure or rhythm, until he groaned. "Not bad, man." Seriously. That sound went straight to my chest. I swallowed hard, trying to focus. I kept going, working my way down between his shoulder blades, then up along his neck. I was hyper-aware of every breath he took, every shift of his body under my hands. "You're shaking," he said after a moment. "I'm not." "You are." I laughed nervously. "Maybe I'm just cold." He turned over, suddenly laying on his back, eyes locked on mine. "You ever wonder what would happen if we stopped pretending this is just normal?" My hands froze mid-air. "Oliver, I know what you're thinking," he said, his voice low. "And I get it. You think I'm just playing around, that I'm bored or something, but I'm not." I sat back slowly, heart racing. "You said your ex was a girl. You've never said I've never said because I didn't know," he interrupted. "Not really. Not until lately." He sat up, legs crossed close enough that our knees touched. "I think about that night, the massage, the way you looked at me, and I can't stop wondering, what if we're both scared of the same thing?" I blinked, stunned. "You're not just messing with me. Do I look like I'm messing with you?" His voice cracked on the last word for the first time. Oliver. Charming, easygoing, confident. Oliver looked uncertain. "I don't want to ruin this," I said. "Our friendship, the apartment, everything." He nodded, me neither. "But I also don't want to spend the next few months pretending I don't feel what I feel." That surprised both of us. He stared, then smiled. Soft, slow, real. "So you do." "I don't know what to call it," I admitted. "But it's there." He leaned forward, resting his forehead gently against mine. "Then, let's not name it yet," he whispered. "Let's just not run from it." The next few weeks were like walking a tightrope. Nothing was official. No grand declarations, but everything was different. The touches became frequent. Natural, easy. He'd brush past me in the hallway and linger. I'd reach for his hand while watching TV, and he wouldn't pull away. We didn't kiss. Not yet, but the air between us buzzed with a tension that was both terrifying and addictive. And then one Saturday night, everything came to a head. We were watching some ridiculous action movie, sprawled across the couch, half drunk on cheap red wine. My head was on his shoulder, his fingers lazily tracing circles on my knee. "Do you think this is a phase for me?" he asked suddenly. I looked up, caught off guard. "What I mean? What if I'm just figuring myself out? Meant losing the person who made me want to try in the first place. I'm not asking for you back. I just wanted you to know you weren't a phase. You were the wake-up call I didn't know I needed. And I'll never forget you, Oliver." I read it twice. Then again, I should have felt closure. Instead, I felt something much worse. Regret. Later that night, I knocked on his door. He opened it slowly, clearly, surprised. "I got your letter," I said. He looked down. "Yeah." I didn't know how else to say it. I took a breath. "You said you didn't want me back. But what if I still want you?" His eyes flickered with something. Hope, maybe pain. "I'm still not perfect," he said. "I'm still figuring it out." "I'm not asking for perfect," I replied. "I'm asking for honest." A long pause. Then he stepped aside, and I walked into his room. We didn't kiss that night. We didn't rush back into each other's arms. We talked for hours about everything. Our fears, our flaws, the messy middle. Neither of us knew how to navigate. It was the first time I truly saw Oliver. Not just the confident guy I'd crushed on, but the one who was scared of being enough. Scared of being seen. And in that moment I realized something. Love doesn't always come easy. Sometimes it comes quietly. Sometimes it looks like forgiveness. Love doesn't always arrive like lightning. Sometimes it takes its time, soft, uncertain, and impossibly real. And sometimes it waits until you're ready to say yes to everything that scared you before. It had been 2 weeks since we sat in Oliver's room, speaking the kind of truth that leaves you breathless. Since then, something between us began to mend. Not quickly, not dramatically, but like cracks slowly being sealed by light. We didn't jump back into romance. We rebuilt something steadier. We started over, but this time with both feet on the ground. There were little things at first, like the way he'd text me home soon, when he stayed late at the gym, or how he'd leave, posted on the fridge with dumb jokes just to make me smile, or the way we started cooking dinner together again. Quiet music in the background. Warm glances passed between boiling pasta and chopped garlic. It wasn't dramatic, it was gentle, and after everything we'd been through, that felt like magic. One evening I came home to find our tiny living room transformed. Fairy lights, candles, a blanket fort. Yes, a full-grown adult blanket fort, with snacks inside, and my favorite bottle of wine sitting between two pillows. I blinked. What is this? Oliver popped his head out from under the blanket fort roof. I Googled romantic gestures that don't involve pressure, just comfort. This was option 5. I couldn't help but laugh. It's ridiculous. It's adorable, he corrected, holding a pillow like a nervous shield. And you're going to sit in it right now, so I did. We lay under the makeshift roof, our shoulders barely touching the candlelight, softening the shadows in the room. Oliver cleared his throat. Can I say something, of course? He looked at the ceiling. That night, I kissed you. It wasn't planned. I wasn't trying to confuse you. When I touched you, when I gave you that massage, something shifted. I'd always thought attraction was black and white, but that night made me realize I'd just been afraid to see the color in between. I turned toward him, heart thudding. I've spent so long trying to be what everyone expects. My dad, my friends, even myself. But when I'm with you, he paused. I'm just me, and I like that version better. I felt tears prick the corners of my eyes. You don't have to have all the answers, Oliver. You just have to let yourself be loved. He reached out finally and took my hand. I already do, he whispered. More than you know. That night, we didn't undress each other. We didn't rush anything. We lay tangled under that ridiculous blanket fort until the candles burned low and our breaths fell in sync. At one point, he pulled me into his chest, his lips resting on my forehead. I used to think I had to be sure of everything before I let someone in, he murmured. And now I ask quietly. Now I think the bravest thing I've ever done is let you see me, before I figured it all out. I closed my eyes. You're not alone in that. From then on, things didn't become perfect, but they became real. We took small steps. Oliver came out to his sister. Then a few close friends. I stood by him every time. Whether it went well or not, we stopped calling each other roommates when introducing ourselves. We just said, this is Oliver, and this is the person I come home to. There were still hard days when his doubts resurfaced, when my fear of being abandoned crept back. But we talked. We chose each other again and again. And the more we did, the less afraid we were of what it all meant. One rainy Sunday afternoon, I found Oliver standing by the window, watching drops streak across the glass. He didn't speak at first, just turned, reached for me, and pulled me in without a word. I leaned into him, letting the silence wrap around us like a blanket. After a long pause, he said, You were right, that first massage that night. Yeah? He smiled against my hair. It changed everything. It broke something open in me. I didn't even know I'd locked away. I looked up at him. What did it open? He pulled back just enough to look me in the eyes. Love. And maybe that's what this story is really about. Not just two guys living together pretending not to fall for each other. Not just a kiss after a massage or the slow unraveling of fear. It's about the space between heartbeats, about what happens when you stop running from who you are and start walking toward the one person who makes you feel like you finally come home. Because sometimes the most shocking thing about love is how right it can feel when you finally let